if I told you the most dangerous person in the room was the one making everyone laugh?
He brought joy to the children of the neighborhood. But beneath the paint, something far darker was waiting to be uncovered.
Imagine the sound of laughter at a children's birthday party. A stocky man in a colorful suit, his face painted with a permanent, oversized grin, performs as Pogo the Clown. But as the sun sets over suburban Chicago, that painted smile melts into something far more predatory. You're in the home of John Wayne Gacy, a pillar of the community who just offered you a drink and a chance to see a magic trick. Suddenly, there's a metallic click. You're in handcuffs. Gacy's jovial voice drops into a cold, growling snarl. He tells you that he has the only key and that you've just been conned. This was Gacy's signature handcuff trick, the prelude to a nightmare of ritualized torture that he claimed produced a mind-numbing orgasm. He doesn't reach for a gun. He reaches for a length of nylon rope and a wooden hammer handle. He performs the rope trick, a primitive tourniquet he twists tighter and tighter until your breath hitches, then loosens it just enough to let you regain consciousness before starting the agony all over again. While Gacy's neighbors complained about a foul stench wafting from his house, he laughed it off as sewer gas or moisture buildup. In reality, the 40-inch crawl space beneath his floorboards was a meticulously managed cemetery. Beneath the yellow brick ranch house at 8213 West Summerdale Avenue, 26 young men and boys were stacked in muddy trenches covered in lime and plastic to hide the rot. When the crawl space was finally full, he began dumping bodies from bridges into the Des Plaines River, treating human lives like disposable refuse. This isn't just a story about a killer in makeup. It's a deep dive into how a high-functioning sociopath could serve as a Democratic precinct captain and dine with the powerful while literally living on top of a mass grave. From his first stabbing of a teenage traveler to his final defiant words of "kiss my ass," this is the full, gruesome evidence of the John Wayne Gacy investigation. Stay tuned, because the deeper we dig into the mud of 8213 Summerdale, the more terrifying the truth becomes. You won't want to look away. Chapter 2, The Mortuary Shadow. At 19, Gacy fled Chicago for Las Vegas, seeking escape from his father's dominance. However, this relocation did not bring liberation. It marked the emergence of darker impulses. Working briefly for an ambulance service, he soon found employment at a mortuary. Here, he was exposed to death in its most clinical form, embalming, handling bodies, and observing the stillness of the deceased. During this period, Gacy later admitted to disturbing behaviors involving corpses, including physical contact with a dead body. Whether exaggerated or not, investigators believe this phase was pivotal. It introduced him to the concept of absolute control, where the victim could neither resist nor judge. This fascination would later evolve into a core psychological driver. Death was no longer an abstraction, it became a domain of power. Despite this, Gacy demonstrated an ability to function socially. Returning to Chicago, he enrolled in business school and secured employment with a shoe company. He presented himself as ambitious, competent, and personable. Here, the duality becomes clear. Beneath the surface of a rising professional was an individual developing a hidden obsession with domination and secrecy. Chapter 3, The Waterloo Paradox. In Iowa, Gacy appeared to thrive. Married, employed, and active in civic organizations, he constructed the image of a model citizen. As a manager of multiple restaurant franchises, he proved capable and driven. His involvement in community groups elevated his reputation further. He earned praise, recognition, and most importantly, the approval of his father. Yet beneath this success lay predation. Gacy exploited his authority to target young men, often employees. His charm and position allowed him to manipulate and control. The turning point came when a teenage victim reported him, rather than retreat. Gacy attempted to silence the boy through intimidation, an escalation that exposed his willingness to manipulate systems to avoid consequences. Convicted in 1968, he was sentenced to prison. Even there, he adapted quickly, becoming a model inmate and earning early release. This chapter reveals a critical pattern. Gacy could integrate into society while simultaneously exploiting it. His ability to manipulate perception became one of his most dangerous traits. Chapter 4. The House on Summerdale. The year is 1971. A quiet suburban street, trimmed lawns, neighbors who wave as they pass. Nothing about 8213 West Summerdale Avenue suggests what it is about to become. John Wayne Gacy arrives here not as a criminal, but as a man reborn. He purchases a modest yellow brick ranch house with help from his mother. To anyone watching, this is a fresh start, a second chance, a man rebuilding his life after mistakes. And he plays the role perfectly. By day, Gacy is a businessman founder of PDM Contractors. Confident, charismatic, always talking, always selling. He hires young men, offers good pay, and quickly earns a reputation as someone who gives opportunities. By evening, he becomes something else entirely. Neighbors remember him as generous. He lends tools, clears snow from sidewalks without asking, hosts parties where laughter spills into the street. Hundreds attend, families, politicians, friends. But what no one sees is what lies beneath their feet. Under the house, a crawl space stretches in darkness. Low, suffocating, silent. It begins as storage, but it will not remain that way. This house is not just a home, it is a stage. A carefully designed environment where control is absolute. Gacy has learned something crucial. To disappear in plain sight, you don't hide, you integrate. And here, on Summerdale Avenue, he doesn't just blend in, he thrives. Chapter 5. The Clown Who Couldn't Be Suspected. There is something deeply unsettling about a clown. Painted smiles, exaggerated laughter, a mask that hides everything real underneath. For John Wayne Gacy, this mask becomes literal. He creates Pogo the Clown. Bright costume, white face paint, red smile stretched too wide. He performs at children's parties, hospitals, community events. Parents trust him. Children laugh with him. But for Gacy, this is not just performance. It is transformation. When he applies the makeup, he enters a different state, one where expectations dissolve, where judgment fades, where he can become someone else entirely. And more importantly, someone untouchable. Because who suspects the clown? This persona becomes his ultimate shield. A layer of innocence so convincing, it deflects scrutiny. It allows him to move freely, to engage with communities, to build trust effortlessly. But there's another side to this mask. The same charm that entertains, manipulates, the same tricks that amuse, deceive. He develops routines, small demonstrations, magic tricks. Among them, one stands out, the handcuff trick, a joke, a challenge, a moment of laughter. But behind the smile, it is something far more sinister. Because once the cuffs are locked, the performance ends, and the real show begins. Chapter 6. The ritual begins. It always starts the same way. A conversation, a job offer, a ride, something ordinary, something safe. Gacy knows exactly who to choose. Young men, vulnerable, looking for work, or simply passing through. People who won't immediately be missed. He brings them to his home, offers a drink, talks business, keeps everything casual, until the moment shifts. Let me show you something. The handcuffs come out. A trick, a joke. He demonstrates how they work, maybe even puts them on himself first. Then it's their turn, and in seconds, they're trapped. What follows is not chaos, it is ritual. Gacy changes. Witnesses later describe it the sudden shift. His voice lowers, his demeanor hardens, the friendly contractor disappears. In his place stands a predator. He uses a rope, a simple device. Loop, twist, tighten, slowly, deliberately, not quick, not merciful, controlled. He tightens until consciousness fades, then loosens, then tightens again. Because this isn't just about killing, it's about power. Total, undeniable, absolute power. And in that moment, Gacy isn't hiding anymore. He is exactly who he believes himself to be. Chapter 7, beneath the floorboards. The smell comes first, subtle at first, then persistent. A foul, creeping odor that clings to the house. Visitors notice. His wife notices. Gacy always has an explanation. Sewer problems. Moisture. Nothing to worry about. And people believe him because they want to. But beneath the house, reality is far worse. The crawl space is cramped, barely high enough to move. Dirt floor, thick air, darkness that swallows sound. Here, Gacy digs. One trench, then another, then another. Bodies are placed carefully, covered with lime, wrapped in plastic, layered into the earth. 26 of them beneath the house, others buried outside, some discarded in a river. This is no longer concealment. This is systemization. A graveyard constructed in silence, just feet below where people gather, laugh, celebrate. Upstairs, music, conversation, life. Downstairs, death, decay, stillness. And Gacy moves between the two worlds effortlessly. That is what makes it terrifying. Not the violence alone, but how completely he lives beside it. Chapter 8, the beginning of the end. December 11th, 1978. A boy disappears. 15 years old, Robert Peast. Last seen speaking to a contractor about a job. That contractor is John Wayne Gacy. This time, something is different. Police move quickly. They question Gacy, and immediately something feels off. His answers don't align. His tone shifts. He talks too much, then not enough. A search warrant is issued. Inside his home, investigators find disturbing clues, handcuffs, identification belonging to other young men, items that don't belong, and one critical piece, a receipt. From the pharmacy where PS was last seen. Proof that Gacy lied. Now, the mask begins to crack. Police don't arrest him immediately. Instead, they watch, day and night. Constant surveillance. And Gacy knows. He tries everything, charm, jokes, even inviting officers inside for coffee. At times, he mocks them. He believes he's still in control. But pressure builds, and eventually, it breaks him. Chapter 9, the trial of control. By the time the trial begins, the question is no longer what happened. It is why Gacy confesses, details everything, leads police to bodies. But in court, his defense takes a different path. They argue he is not responsible, that another personality, Bad Jack, committed the crimes, that he was not in control. It's a strategy built on confusion, on doubt. But the prosecution dismantles it, piece by piece. They present a different image. Not a man out of control, but a man in complete control. A businessman, a community leader, someone capable of planning, organizing, and hiding dozens of crimes over years. Witnesses testify. Survivors describe the shift the moment Gacy became something else. Not chaotic, calculated. The jury sees through it. After weeks of testimony, the verdict comes quickly. Guilty, 33 times. Chapter 10, the final mask falls. Even behind prison walls, John Wayne Gacy never stopped performing. Death row was not an end for him, it was another stage. He painted obsessively. Bright colors, twisted smiles, clowns that stared a little too long. He gave interviews, spoke calmly, confidently, and again, he told the same story. I'm innocent. He rewrote reality as if it were his own script, casting himself not as the monster, but as the victim. And he never broke character. Years passed, 14 of them. The world moved on, but May 10th, 1994 did not. The execution chamber waits cold, silent, clinical. Everything is prepared, measured, precise. It is supposed to be quick, controlled, efficient. But nothing about Gacy was ever simple. The procedure begins. Second stretch. Minutes follow. Then more. Something goes wrong. A blockage. A delay. A malfunction. What should have taken moments drags on. 5 minutes becomes 10. 10 becomes 18. An eerie, uncomfortable silence fills the room. For some, it feels like a final, grim symmetry. A man who prolonged suffering, now caught in a moment that refuses to end. And then, it's over. The body lies still. The performance ends, but the story does not. Because long after Gacy is gone, the questions remain buried. Years later, investigators return, not to him, but to those he left behind. Advances in DNA technology begin to uncover what time tried to erase. Names emerge from silence. Faces return to memory. For decades, families had waited, wondered, hoped. Now, at last, they know. Not all of them, but enough to remind the world of something deeply unsettled. Evil doesn't always announce itself. It doesn't always lurk in shadows or wear a monstrous face. Sometimes it smiles. Sometimes it shakes your hand. Sometimes it invites you inside.